Welcome to Pods with Posh and Pool, a podcast designed to inspire and challenge listeners through story, experience and insight. To face adversity, learn from suffering and discover how to embrace life with a heart filled with love and gratitude. We are so thrilled to have you journey with us and can't wait to share your stories. Join Sue O'Callaghan and Joanne Webb as we disrupt the theory that everyone has perfect lives.
Hi and welcome into our Pods with Posh and Pool tribe. Today we have with us a brave and inspirational guest who has faced something no parent should ever have to face. In 2011, she found her beautiful son who had taken his own life. Here to tell her heartbreaking story and to inspire listeners that you can meet your darkest times and come out thriving, not just surviving. Sharlene is a thought leader on Mindshift, the future of mindset, with more than 30 years' experience in business coaching and a background in accounting and holistic psychology. She's an international speaker and veteran workshop facilitator. Sharlene herself is the living embodiment of her Mindshift program, navigating the gap from where you are to where you want to be. Here to share her story and her tools and techniques on Mindshift, we are so pleased to welcome Sharlene Lynch. Hi Sharlene, lovely to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, you have got a massive story and you now obviously offer your wisdom and insight to other people, and you're all about mindset shifting, which is fabulous. We love anything to do with mindset here on the podcast. But can you just go back and tell us a little bit about your story, the back bit of it?
Yes. So before my son passed away, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So outwardly, it looked like as if I had my life almost together. I was running a business that was turning over $1 million a year, and nobody knew what was happening behind closed doors. So behind closed doors, I was a fully fledged alcoholic, had been for 30 years. I was a hoarder and a big hoarder too. So like they would have made a television show of me. I also had lots of complicated mental health issues so some of them were diagnosed, some of them weren't. So at different times during my life, I'd suffered from chronic depression and a debilitating OCD disorder, which had really expressed itself and had heightened into self-harm. So yeah, life was a little complicated. I also am totally dyslexic, and I also have a challenge around ADD. So yeah, I got all the bad genes.
You were living in a lot of pain throughout that, weren't you? When you think about all of those things, they scream trauma, pain, grief to me. Is that what you would agree on?
Absolutely. And I had also attempted suicide on several occasions, starting when I was a teenager, and the last attempt was when I was 38. So I had a very unbalanced life, but from an outsider looking in, everybody said, oh my God, Sharlene, she's the life of the party. You know, she's the last one to leave. Well, that's because I was always still drunk. She's always got an answer for everything. And, look, she's just a workaholic, and that was a lot of the OCD kicking in. So yeah, it looked good. Everyone thought it looked good. I lived in a beautiful house. I had wonderful friends, went to fabulous parties, traveled the world. But underneath, behind closed doors, it was a screaming mess.
You would have hit the nerve of many of our listeners. They will say they've been suffering from OCD, from addiction, from depression, from overeating, and it's crippling, isn't it? Because we live in this facade, as you say. Nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors, and that in itself must have been so hard. On one hand, to have the secret life hidden away, and on the other hand, have a public life where nobody knew what was going on. How did you deal with the conflicting lives that you were living?
So I've got to say that I surrounded myself with people that had similar challenges. So I was lost in the mix. So I know we've all heard proximity is power, and it's absolutely accurate. So I was, in fact, many of the people that when I came clean and said that I'm, an alcoholic, a lot of my very close friends denied it. And some of them to this day still say, "Oh, she just drank a bit. She wasn't an alcoholic." No, I am and still am an alcoholic. I just don't drink. It's interesting, isn't it, that when you surround yourself with people that reflect the behaviours of yourself, that you don't see it, they don't see it, and in fact they deny it when it's brought up. So that says a lot about proximity.
Mm. And I think the whole thing about being an alcoholic, I think people, if you haven't got 5 bottles of vodka hidden around your house in different locations, people don't think you're an alcoholic. But there's very different types of alcoholics, isn't there?
Oh dear, darling, I did have 5 different types of vodka.
There you go then.
The house had 16 rooms, and I can guarantee you there was alcohol hidden in most of the rooms. And I didn't hide the fact that I drank. In fact, it was just a thing. And at home, it was nothing unusual for me to pass out after Scott got home from school. I would, because I started drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. What I don't understand is how I never got done for drunk driving. How did I get away with that for 30 years? It's a mystery. So to answer your question, Sue, in regards to how do you live these 2 separate lives? Well, we language things differently. We don't tell them the details. When the OCD and the self-harm were at its highest, I was so challenged to even leave the house because it took me so long to check everything in the house before I could get out of the house. And then I didn't get out of the house, I just came back in. So it had ebbed and flowed. Like, I wasn't to the point of, not being able to move every day of my 50 years. It was only some days.
Yeah.
And, on your bad days, you just don't get seen. You make excuses. You send someone else to do your work. You work on the telephone. You do other things. I remember it was so bad at one point. The furthest I could get out of the house was the letterbox. And because it was unchecked as well. Now, I had tried to see therapists, but I didn't even tell the therapists the true stories. I told them the fantasy of my life. And that's good, but that doesn't get you where you need to go. And since my son's passing, I have had some brilliant therapists, and I've given myself some pretty good therapy as well. So, yeah.
It's a really important message to our listeners, because I've also been in years of therapy in the past, and I remember not telling the truth because I didn't want to be judged by that person in front of me. I didn't want to be that raw real. I didn't actually want to admit it to myself, some of the things that were inside of me. And I think if therapy is going to work for you, you have to be raw and real, or you're just literally wasting your money.
I think you're so spot on there, Jo, because I think, we don't want to admit to ourselves how bad our life is sometimes. So we live this false story, don't we, that we survive then also because we have this other life as well. We have our friends, and we have a community, and we have a workplace where we can be a different person in. But it's so hard to admit that to ourselves and be real and be really authentic with who we are. And so, I honor you for going to that therapy. It was interesting because when I read your bio, you say you can be, do, have, and share anything and everything you want. So obviously there's been a huge transformation and a shift in your life from that place to this place. What happened?
Yeah, so a massive shift. And you're right, you're both accurate. You need to be honest with your therapists. I do want to add in something though, and this might be a little bit contra to what others have been told, is that every therapist I did see before my son's passing all wanted me to go on medication, every single one of them. In fact, when I was a child, my father wanted me to go on lithium. Like, it's a long history of mental illness, and I have resisted the entire time, and I still resist. Therapists now still suggest, and before they even say anything, I say, better, don't even suggest it. So I've got from where I am to where I was to where I am. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, but for me, drug-free, so no medication. Now, and I know everyone's got a different story, but I just found that I've healed faster, truer, and have been able to go deeper inside of myself and really connect with my soul and what I'm here to do by not being dulled down by having the medication. But I'm not suggesting anyone else please take your medication.
And everyone's path is completely different, isn't it?
Yes.
We'll have different journeys in life. I'm just fascinated. Jo and I are all about overcoming adversity and suffering. We're all about the tools and techniques people use. What was your most helpful aspect in that journey to create that transition? Where was the critical turning point for you? Because we get to rock bottom, don't we? At some stage we say, right, now things have to change.
Is it okay if I share the story of the night?
Yeah, whatever you feel you can share.
because it's very pertinent to your question, because this is the turning point. So it was a cool Saturday night in September 2011, and I've come home from a birthday party, and I'm sort of sober a little bit because there'd been an accident and we'd been at the hospital, and that's another story. But so I was relatively sober, which was quite unusual for me to be coming home on a Saturday night sober. And I've come home and I've tried to let Scott know, my son, know that I'm home early, and he just answered the door. So I go and I knock on the door, and the door's locked, and the door's never locked. We just don't lock doors in the house. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. Anyway, screaming more, true mother style, I'm home. And he doesn't answer. So I asked my partner to go around the outside of the house and look through Scott's window, because he's probably gaming and wearing those stupid headsets teenagers wear, and he can't hear a word I'm saying. And that's when we discover that my 17-year-old baby boy had hung himself. I raced to the door and I kicked the door down to rescue him, and I tried for 15 long minutes to resuscitate him until the ambulance arrived. When the ambulance officers came, their arms were just fully laden with equipment, and they ushered me quickly out of the room. And I stood outside of Scott's room, not breathing. Well, I thought I wasn't breathing, but I obviously was. And I was praying for a different outcome, that they could resuscitate him, that they could bring him back. Sometime later, the ambulance officer came out of Scott's room, and I know he said something. I couldn't hear what he said. The look on his face said it, and I crashed to the ground, and I held the ballast rail up on the way down so I didn't fall completely onto the ground. And I was still praying for another outcome. And during my prayers, I got an answer. I heard one word, and that word was forgive. I'm still crying, my eyes are totally swollen, and I'm still having trouble breathing. And the ambulance officer said, when you're ready, do you want to come and say goodbye to your son? It took me quite some time to compose myself. It took me quite some time to even stand up. So I've stood up and I've walked inside of Scott's room, and now I've laid down on the ground and I've rested, because Scott was 6'3", a very big boy. I've laid down and I've put my head on his chest, and I've cuddled him, and I've told him how much I love him. And I love you, Scotty. I love you, baby. And Mummy forgives you. I forgive you for your choice. And what I didn't understand is me forgiving him, that was the beginning of my shift. My energies had shifted. I was in a completely different space. Later that night, while I was sitting in the lounge room now, the CIB were investigating, and I'm watching my giant cup of coffee now going cold. I've said out loud, I thought I said it to myself, but I said it out loud, I'm not just going to survive this. I'm going to thrive through this. That's what Scott would want. And yeah, that was the second point. That was the decision was made. And as you and I both know, decision is to cut and kill any other choice. And so there was no going back. I had no idea what thriving looked like from that perspective of my life: overweight, 30 years of alcohol, the hoarding, the self-harm, the mental illness. I had no idea how to get from where I was, a shitty mess, into the person that I am today. I just had made the decision. So the decision came next. And then the next day, as soon as I was sort of able to, see without, because my eyes were a bit of a problem. I couldn't see. I'd been crying for so many hours. But as soon as I was able to see, I grabbed a spiral-bound book and I just started to write out everything I was grateful for, because I needed another shift and I didn't know how to do it, but I knew gratitude would shift things. So I just wrote for pages and pages and pages of the things I was grateful for. And, to my surprise, even in that shitty state, there were pages of things to be grateful for. And it wasn't all good. I remember one day there was just only one thing written on my page, just that the sun was shining. That was a really hard day. It was a really, really hard day. I still do gratitude on a daily basis, and I journal, I write it, I say it, I pray it. Like I do gratitude to shift my energies. And my next step was to write out a list of what I'd like my life to look like. And that was a massive, massive list. And it was a fantasy, because I wrote it and I looked at it and I thought, this just doesn't even remotely feel real. Like, how can I get from where I am now to where I need to be? And then the next list started, and that was a list of everything that needed to change to create the life that I wanted to live. And that brings in the shift process. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
It totally answers our question. And oh my goodness, I mean, it's like any parent's worst nightmare, what you have suffered. We honour your strength, we honour your courage, and we honour your vulnerability for sharing this story, because there is other parents out there going through exactly what you have been through. And we, appreciate how hard it is to share that. For you to have that courage and that mind shift there and then to forgive, because forgiveness is such a powerful thing, and we know often we forgive others to release ourselves, and to forgive your son for making that decision is huge. And then to have that mind shift to thrive, not survive, that's almost, it's poignant in a way. So it's a legacy to your son to do that, to make the best of your life that you could possibly do.
I've got to say, the police thought it was very unusual. They wrote it down, and this is really quite bizarre. That actually made me a suspect. And so I got a little bit of an interrogation just quietly, which is strange, but it's just how I felt at that time. I just felt that that's what he wanted me to do. I felt some level that he had, now I'm going to cry, that he'd saved me from myself by making the ultimate sacrifice. Now that's no way to think. However, at that moment in time, with all the things that were going through my head and not in my, completely clear-headed state, that's sort of the backstory behind thinking he'd want me to thrive.
And Sharlene, as Jo says, you have shown such courage in not only facing what she says is the worst nightmare that any parent could ever endure, your courage to speak out against it as well, and in that situation is absolutely extraordinary. So I know listeners will be really touched by your story and really grateful that you shared it with us. And also, there's levels of suffering out there. We all suffer in different ways, and you can't compare one suffering to another. People listening might say, well, I've not suffered what Sharlene has suffered, and yet I feel guilty for what I'm feeling because I haven't lost a child. But depression is depression, anxiety is anxiety, fear is fear. So they're very real feelings and emotions. What I love is that you're giving tools that if you can overcome and face the journey of healing from losing a son, through writing a gratitude journal, through realizing you need to make a shift in your life, through looking at forgiveness as a tool and seeing your son as part of that journey, that is so admirable. And also we want to just acknowledge what that means to our listeners as well, because when you're in suffering itself, it is black, it is bleak, and it is raw. And we want to get out of it, but we don't know how. And I love your gratitude journal where you say that, one day you could only thank the fact that the sun was shining. And I've got a lovely quote for gratitude, which is, it's a powerful catalyst for happiness, and it's the spark that lights a fire of joy in your soul. And it sounds like you've got that spark in your soul of joy.
Bless you, thank you. So they can actually scientifically prove it now, that gratitude raises your frequency. They've even proven now that praying over your food before you eat it changes the food on a molecular level. Mm-hmm. So, science is just backing up something that, the rest of us have known forever. Just to answer your question in relation to, I haven't, people out there listening, I haven't lost a son, or I haven't had that much pain. It's not about that. Everyone's journey, as you say, is different. And a lot of the tools that I use help businesses move from where they are to where they need to be. And during this pandemic, I've never been this busy. This is a time when people need to shift from where they are to where they need to be so that they can create a life that thrives. So the tools and techniques and the model that I teach is not specific to someone who is in a bad place, or it really just helps people, humans, get over themselves and find a different frequency to live on. And can I just run you through the shift process?
Yeah, we'd love to hear it. Go for it.
Okay, so shift is an acronym. The first thing is to see the big picture. Yeah, so this is it. You have to have a really big vision, and this is in business and in life, and it needs to be uncomfortable. If it's comfortable, it's not big enough. So it needs to be it needs to feel like a stretch. So we hear this all the time, and then, what we need to do though is embed it. So I love the fact that we're basically energy and motion. And so that's where our emotions come from. What we need to do is we need to get to that core really quickly. So I love a feelings board. So instead of a vision board of the things you physically want, it was great to create a board of how you want to feel. So I wanted to feel free. I wanted to feel fit. So I didn't have pictures of people on there that were fit. I had pictures of how it would make me feel. And then I created videos and cut and pasted videos and strung them together and put music over the top of them. And it's a feeling board, and it's just sensational. So on my phone, everywhere, on my laptop, everywhere I look, there's reminders every day of my big vision. So on my laptop screensaver at the moment is me cut and pasted into a TED Talk, because that's where I'm going. Yeah, so it has to be big, yes? So that's shift, that's S. And then H is honing in on reality. So honing in on reality. So now it's time to get real. And for me, this was very challenging to stand in the mirror and literally stand in the mirror and talk to myself and shift myself by telling myself that I loved myself. And first of all, I couldn't believe it. And then it was like, okay, what's really happening? Okay, you're an alcoholic. Well, I'm not going to admit that. So I did need to go get help to go and admit those sorts of things. So break it down. What's really happening? You think your business is doing well? Well, let's pull a balance sheet out. Let's look at your profit and loss. Let's do some forecasting. Let's see what's really happening with the business. You know, let's see, are the employees doing exactly what they need to do? Are you getting a return on investment for all your advertising spend? So get real on what it is that you're doing in your business space and your personal space. And this is very much of an undressing. And if you don't have a level of expertise in this area, you will need to get an expert to help you hone in on reality, whether it be an accountant or whether it be a therapist. The honing in requires assistance, because we don't want to see what we don't want to see. That's why we are where we are. The next one is implement quick wins. So that's the I. Now, I is probably the most important letter in shift. And the reason for that is if we don't implement quick wins, and whether this be on a diet journey or this be on a business journey or this be on a personal development journey, if you don't implement quick wins, what you're not doing is you're not assisting your brain to rewire so it can think differently. And we all know, you know, the neurons that fire together wire together. You need these quick wins, and they need to come thick and they need to come fast. So you need to find ways to implement quick wins. So for me, that first night when I was staring at my giant cup of coffee, I have to this day, and it's more than 8 years since my son's passing, have never drank coffee. So that was my very first win, because previous to that I was drinking 8 coffees a day. So that's what I told myself the week after, is that, hello, I want to make all these changes. I can't make these changes. Look at you, girl. You've given up coffee. Okay, it's only been a week, but you've given up coffee. You can do this. So implementing those quick wins is the things that really made the difference. So it also helps the serotonin levels kick in the brain. And so you actually get a bit of a high for these quick wins. So whatever the task, even if it's beyond massive, implementing quick wins will help you rewire and become, move to have these repetitive changes over and over again. And this is what helps embed things. Yeah. And you have to make sure you see where you sit on the success cycle, and you need to make sure that you're recognizing yourself. So recognition is good. So I celebrate every single win. You know, once I was moving through great sections of the depression after Scott passed away, because it wasn't an even upward spiral either, girls. It was down and up and down and up and down and up. And during my downward spirals back into a bit of a depression, I celebrated that I got out of bed. I celebrated that I made the bed. And you should have seen me do a cartwheel after I had a shower. Like I had to celebrate the really, really tiny things. So that's part of implement the quick win. So that I is my most important letter, in my opinion, of this process. Then F is to focus on the patterns. And there's patterns. Now, the best way to focus on patterns is to journal. So the journal serves such a big purpose. So the journal serves a purpose of daily journaling. It serves a purpose of, your gratitude journaling as well. And it also serves a purpose of making sure before you get out of bed, before you even reach for that phone, before you do anything else, sit in your dream and journal it. Because this is your unconscious mind speaking to your, subconscious mind speaking to your conscious mind, which is sometimes unconscious, and having a conversation and letting it know the things it needs to know. We're designed to have the answers within us. We just think that we need other people to get them out. You don't. You just need to give yourself space and time with meditation, space and time with journaling your dreams, and you'll find that you've got the answers. You're designed to heal. We are self-healing mechanisms. Did you know that your hands will actually self-sanitize themselves? Like, we are that amazing. We're just amazing. So focus on the patterns. So this also means focusing on family patterns as well. And you'll see that a lot of the things that we've got in our lives are repetitive patterns of family. And you'll see how this unfolds. And journaling will help you see this. So journaling helped me see where the family patterns of hoarding were, where the family patterns of alcoholism were, where all the family patterns were. And this really helped me see the bigger patterns as well of my own cycles, my Saturn returns every 7 years. Like, I could see what I was doing. I was treading water. I wasn't moving forward. I'd move one step forward, but not in great leaps and bounds. So you really need to get really real and focus on the patterns, because they're there and you just need to see them. And the last one is take action. So the T stands for take action. Now, I believe you need to take massive imperfect action. Now, I'm a recovering perfectionist, thanks to the OCD. And I wouldn't even take action because I wanted the action to be perfect. Well, you just got to do it. And it needs to be imperfect. You need to start where you stand. And this was a big lesson for me, because I just wouldn't even do the things I think I could do because I couldn't do them because they weren't perfect. Now I just do it, perfect or not perfect, and I learn as I go. And it's it's LOL, yeah, learning out loud.
I'm just going to run through it quickly again. You've got shift, and you've got S is for see the bigger picture, H is honing in on reality, I is implement quick wins, F is to focus, and T is to take action. And it's what we all have to do in all stages of life. And I love the fact you also relate it not only to your private life, your family life, but business as well. And Joe and I have been quite massive on shift, haven't we, Joe? And we actually talk about stepping into the uncomfortable. Don't step into what is safe and secure, but step into the uncomfortable and stretch yourself beyond what you think you're capable of achieving.
That's true. So in my language, that's, take massive action. It's the same thing. And I think this is the human condition. I love shift. It's got me from where I was to where I am. And that's obviously just the acronym. Underneath that sits a 90-minute workshop, a half-day workshop, a 6-month program. So there's lots of things underneath it. So my things are very quick tools and techniques that create a life that thrives. Things that everyone can implement, things that don't cost you money, things that you can change the patterns of behaviour. And it's just by knowing yourself better and understanding how the brain and the brain chemistry works, so that you can help make things different.
No, I love that, Sharlene. I love exactly what you said. I mean, it's a great acronym. It's very, very easy to follow. But I like how honest you were as well, especially about implement your quick wins, because this is what we talk to our guests and our listeners all the time. Life is not perfect. It will be a roller coaster. There will be ups and downs. And no matter what journey we're on, we're thrown curveballs all the time. So yes, celebrate those wins. Celebrate getting out of bed, like you say. I love the fact that you cartwheeled when you had a shower. Fantastic. When my kids were young, I celebrated putting mascara on and brushing my teeth. Now we celebrate doing a podcast. It's different all the time, but celebrate those wins. And then that taking massive imperfect action. Most people who get where they are don't do it by staying in their safe zone, as you say. It's about stepping out there, doing things in the unknown, massive imperfect action, because never is there anything going to be perfect. Because the word perfect shouldn't really even exist.
It's perfectly imperfect, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a recovering perfectionist, that was one of my biggest challenges.
And so, Sharlene, where are you today? Because I believe you are, well, obviously you have been alcohol-free for many years. You've lost weight. How are you on your other things that you were going through at the time?
Yes, I've lost 25 kilos. I have, and I've been sober now for 57 months. So that I'm so excited about that.
Brilliant.
Lost 25 kilos. I'm in a place now where I'm managed. So hoarding is a complex mental issue, And if you ask even a therapist, they'll tell you that there's no one defining thing that makes this so. It's a complicated. So I have to, on a daily basis, I choose to, on a daily basis, think through my patterns of behaviour, from even the choice to keep a rubber band from wrapping, when you bring something home, to do I really need this? So I still ask myself these questions. I brought the shopping home yesterday, and I asked myself the same question: do you need this rubber band? No, I don't need this rubber band. Let's bless this rubber band and put it in the bin. So it's still because they're ingrained. So the OCD, so now my OCD is my superpower. So I use the thing that was once my challenge into something that helps me manage getting jobs done. So the shitty jobs I don't want to get done, I use my OCD to get those jobs done. It's bizarre, and it works. From, cross-checking data on a spreadsheet to just, writing chapters in my book, So I just use the patterns that are built around the OCD to get that job done. For self-harm, well, I'm in a place of self-love now. So I have really spent a lot of time on self-compassion and self-love. So that is the furthest thing from my mind. I still watch it though, and what I eat, and I'm a vegetarian, so I eat good, healthy food. I'm thinking about becoming a vegan, but I'm only thinking about it. So where am I right now? So right now I'm a professional public speaker. I run a business coaching business, and I love my clients to pieces. We have such a great relationship, and I've helped people move from places you wouldn't believe to being so successful, and helping them see that the things that they have been their challenges can now be their superpower. So we have a unique process to look at those. Aside from my own personal business, I am just about to step into a global speaking position where I'll be running summits across the world, which I'm a bit excited about. So that's the next phase. We're just in copywriting phase for that. That's huge. So I'll be taking the shift message globally. So excited. After that, I've got my hands up for a couple of TED Talks, so just waiting for those to be signed off. The book's in process as well. So the book's called Mind Shift, The Future of Mindset. And that's one of the big things, is changing our language around not even calling it mindset. I'd love it if the whole world would call it mind shift, because it's not about being set. It's about shifting. So I love it when I hear people after one of my talks and their languaging shift and they're bringing it into their own intellectual property. It just tickles my fancy. I would love it if the whole world would move away from mindset and start calling it mind shift. So lots of really amazing things. Yeah, I'm just loving life, and I'm loving being in a position so that I can pay it forward and make a difference to others.
We can hear that you're loving life so much. We can actually pick up on your passion and your energy, which is so extraordinary. Congratulations on where you've come to today. I'm also thrilled to hear that you're passing on that message to others and empowering other people through speaking and doing podcasts. I love also the fact you bring it back to reality. We don't have perfect lives. Our weaknesses are our strengths, and vice versa. And you say that this is a daily challenge for you in your OCD as well. And that's another message to listeners to get across, is that we don't always overcome our struggles and become this perfect person with a perfect life. That's our message to listeners on our podcast, is that we're disrupting the theory everyone's got perfect lives. But on a daily basis, we continue to forgive, we continue to grow, we continue to be in gratitude, we continue to shift and learn resilience and courage. And so thank you so much for the message you've shared with us today. Is there one last thing or message you'd like to share with listeners before you leave?
Oh, I could go on for hours, but I won't. I'm just going to say, you've got this. We've put here for a reason. And, you're a special human being. You've got a lot to give. You're a one in, 7 billion people. There's a lot of people out there, and you're the only one just like you. You've got something special. You just need to look in the mirror and find it. And if you can't, ask someone else to help you. And you've got this. You've just so totally got this. You're designed for success. You're designed to move forward. And we're supposed to be imperfect. It's the way we're supposed to be, and we're supposed to still make it with those imperfections. We don't get rid of those things. We just use them differently. We see them differently. We shift.
Absolutely. Oh, Sharlene, thank you so much for your messages. Sorry for your loss, but thank you for turning your loss into a passion and helping other people, because you truly are an inspiration. You've inspired both Sue and I today. You've made us cry, you've made us laugh, and Sue was right. Your passion just exudes out to you. We can't even see you, but we can hear it, and your voice just blossoms. So well done for you for getting over all the things that could have held you back in life, and you haven't let anything stop you, and we congratulate you on that, and we wish you every luck for the future. We can't wait to hear more about you. We can't wait to come to your summit.
God bless you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
If you would like to connect with Sharlene, she can be found at sharlenelynch.com and on Facebook, facebook.com/Sharlene Speaker. She's also available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for being with us today. For us to inspire others to live their magnificently imperfect life, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or on your podcast app. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Pods with Posh and Pool. We can't wait for you to join us on our next episode. Love, light and peace.